The cold morning air settles over Montevideo in a thin layer of mist. The port awakens before sunrise. Dock workers unload wooden crates as freshly printed newspapers announce, in bold headlines, something the world has never seen before. This is not just football. This is the world arriving in Uruguay. July 1930. In the narrow streets of the city center, tailors rush to finish suits. Light blue flags appear on balconies. Children run through the streets with worn leather balls. In smoke-filled cafes, conversations blend politics, national pride, and anticipation. The entire country seems suspended between anxiety and ambition. Uruguay was not a global empire. It had no vast army, no colonial power, but it was stable, progressive for its region, and proud of its young democracy. It was celebrating 100 years of independence. And above all, it was a two-time Olympic champion in football. Hosting the first World Cup was not just an honor, it was a statement to the world. FIFA was still young, still searching for legitimacy. Europe hesitated. The Great Depression had shaken governments and industries. Crossing the Atlantic seemed long, expensive, and uncertain. Uruguay offered to pay travel and accommodation costs. It was an offer no one could easily refuse. Montevideo became a construction site. The Estadio Centenario rose from mud and rain, a monument of concrete built against impossible deadlines. Workers labored day and night. The stadium was more than infrastructure. It was political identity cast in stone. Meanwhile, ships departed Europe carrying reluctant national teams. Players endured weeks at sea, seasickness, fatigue, uncertainty. Many had never left their home countries before. When they finally arrived at Montevideo's port, they were met by curious crowds. Different languages echoed across the docks. Reporters documented every moment. Hotels filled, restaurants improvised menus. Tailors adjusted formal attire for spectators who believed attending a match required elegance. In 1930, watching football was a social ritual. Men wore dark suits and hats. Women wore long dresses and gloves. Going to the stadium was a civic act. On match days, the city changed its rhythm. Streetcars filled with supporters heading toward the Centenario. Vendors sold peanuts, sweets, and flags. Children gathered near the gates just to feel the atmosphere. Outside the stadium, thousands without tickets surrounded radios and improvised loudspeakers. Radio was the silent revolution. For the first time, football was being narrated live to people who could not see it. Voices carried emotion across the airwaves. Bars fell into complete silence when broadcasts began. Then came the eruptions. Cheers, applause, collective gasps. But celebration was not the whole story. There was diplomatic tension. The rivalry between Uruguay and Argentina went beyond sport. Disputes over refereeing, over which ball would be used in the final, over organization itself. The tournament was also a test for FIFA, which was still learning how to coordinate an international competition. In the countryside, farms and small villages followed the news through newspapers that arrived late. Still, the World Cup was present in every conversation. The sense that the world was watching this small nation created a powerful mixture of pride and responsibility. As the final approached, Montevideo seemed to breathe more slowly. Businesses closed early. Streets emptied hours before kickoff. Churches filled with silent prayers. Inside the stadium, nearly 100,000 people packed into damp concrete terraces. Outside, thousands waited for any sound that might reveal what was happening inside. Every roar from the crowd echoed through the city like a wave. You didn't need to see it. You could feel it. When Uruguay's victory was confirmed, the transformation was immediate. Montevideo did not sleep that night. The title was more than sporting success. It was symbolic. A small country had organized the largest football tournament ever staged. And the impact did not end there. The 1930 World Cup established football as a global phenomenon. It proved that oceans were not barriers. It showed that stadiums could become civic temples. It began a tradition that would repeat every 4 years, even through wars and economic crises. The Estadio Centenario remained as a monument. That month became national myth. Stories were passed from generation to generation. Black and white photographs captured elegant men in the stands and tightly packed crowds moving as one. The tournament also redefined the relationship between politics and sport. Governments understood the power of hosting such an event. Football could project image, strengthen identity, and shape national narratives. And perhaps most importantly, 1930 proved that football does not belong only to the players. It belongs to the streets, to the bars, to the ports, to families gathered around a radio. It belongs to the collective atmosphere formed when millions share the same anticipation. Today, when we watch modern World Cups surrounded by technology, global broadcasts, and futuristic arenas, we rarely think about that winter in Uruguay. But that is where it began. Between fresh concrete, steamships, and crackling radios. The first World Cup was not just an inaugural tournament. It was the moment football stopped being a regional game and became a universal language. And the question that remains is simple. When a nation places its identity into an event like this, is it celebrating its strength or trying to prove something to the world? To understand 1930 is to understand the birth of a phenomenon that still shapes passion, economies, and politics. Because in the end, what began in Montevideo was not just a competition, it was the beginning of an era.